Hello again. Thank you for still being here. I don't know if some of you noticed, we had a little protest outside the venue just before. It was against Google, basically. And the protesters were saying that Google was behaving irresponsibly by building a campus in the middle of Berlin. So, Caroline, working at Better Place and knowing the whole social startup scene, would you say that the climate has changed towards social responsibility of the tech scene and the startup scene in the recent years?
So I think what's just to say is that things have changed in a way that digitization and the startup scene has grown up and has become more important for society as a whole. So what the big internet companies are doing and disruptive models like Uber are doing is developing direct social consequences, and so it's just logic that society starts to ask what's behind it, how the companies behave, if there is a corporate social responsibility that has to be asked for. And so I think what we're seeing outside is a direct expression of that.
Jan, you're the marketing expert in this round. What's your opinion on this?
Well, I think we see more and more companies in the digital business which are becoming really huge, and the bigger they become, the more attention is on them. That's just regular. And then things like their activities, the Google campus, working conditions in companies like these, they just become more a topic where people discuss about. The other example is, like, I think it was 5 weeks ago when Jeff Bezos received the Axel Springer Award here in Berlin. There also were protests with some very well-known politicians, and they claimed that working conditions at Amazon are just not good. And I think it is good that these companies, the bigger they become, the more attention is on the question, how do they behave? How is their social responsibility? How do they treat their employees? How do they treat the environment? What are they doing besides maybe having a good business model, but how do they treat their environment and their employees? And it's important to ask these questions, yes?
Jakob, you have founded one of the companies who wants to be different in that field. It's called Tomorrow. It's, like you say, a sustainable mobile bank. What does make a bank sustainable?
That's a good question. Honestly, we're about to start, so we haven't started yet. So everything I'm going to tell is the big vision or mission. We haven't achieved anything yet. But obviously, money is involved pretty much everywhere. Every kind of business is being funded, and as long as the money is not coming from VCs or business angels, it's usually coming from banks. So banks are heavily involved in everything that happens out there business-wise. And they're being involved in all the good things and all the bad things. And if we take a look at all these industries out there which are having a negative impact, they're being funded by banks as well. And so are the good ones. So are renewables, is organic farming, so all the potentially positive businesses, they need money from somewhere. So that's obvious. But then still, banking is one of the last markets or big markets where the sustainability approach is still quite of a niche thing. You know, we're having organic supermarkets out there all over the place, but sustainable finance is a very niche thing so far, and that's what we want to change with Tomorrow. There have been players for 40 years now, GLS Bank, doing very good business, but they're very old school, they're not very state-of-the-art, and that's what we want to change, to combine the big trend of mobile banking together with sustainable finance, to channel the money of people, your money, potentially, and use it for a good cause, channel it to industries which create a positive impact.
Does that also reflect on your own internal structure as a company in a way, and how you handle things in dealing with employees or stuff like that?
Well, first of all, it's pretty much the motive why we do this in general. I mean, I'm very new to banking. I'm still having a big learning curve ahead, and so are my co-founders. We've been dealing with. I'm coming from the food industry. The others have been involved in technology and finance, but banking is quite a new thing, and I wouldn't have entered the fintech sector if it wasn't a business model that is impact or purpose driven. So that's why we started this, that's why we created this, and this is not about us founders only, it's also about the staff that has joined us in the last 6 months. They obviously want to change something, they want to use their talent for good reason, and that's why we do what we do.
Christian, you're also in the food sector. Do you have any criteria for choosing the partners you work with, like suppliers and investors and stuff like that, because you're a social business, basically?
Yeah, definitely. So we are very value driven, and of course it starts with us at the first moment, how we work, how we collaborate together as a team. But then, of course, when we look for suppliers, we search the direct contact. 50% of our product is cacao, so that's a really critical thing to trade. And of course, we want direct trade. We went to Bali last year and visited the farms and saw how they do agriculture. So to make long story short, we do, and I think that's the only way to be really consequent in your values and kind of carry it to your consumers on one side and to your suppliers on the other side.
But isn't there also beneath the, next to the social responsibility, a kind of economic responsibility towards maybe your investors who say you have to reach certain goals? How do you balance those two things?
So we are still looking for our first investor. So, but of course, it's kind of, we play as a consumer product. We play in the capitalist market. We have a product, and of course, we have to pay our team. But what we did is we kind of implemented the social aspect, which is planting 1 tree for every bar we implemented in our DNA. So everybody who works with us knows, okay, before we look at the profit, one tree has to be planted. And if you have this mindset, I think you can be economically sustainable and, of course, ecological sustainable at the same time.
No. Okay. Caroline, at Better Place, you help social projects find funding. How do you decide if a project that goes onto the platform is really meeting this this recommendation, or if it's just somebody looking for money and putting a social label on it?
So I have to give 2 answers to that. So where Better Place originally came from, we left a lot of freedom to the projects themselves. So what we have is a basic set of values that, and we have a dedicated team that checks every project that goes on fundraising or donation raising on our website, and we check them if they meet these values in their description. Plus, we have a huge focus on transparency. So the projects have to define which need they will actually finance with the money, and afterwards tell the donators the story if they actually did it. So there is a social network of trust building around the projects with comments, with recommendations and all that, and that works really well. So in 10 years of betterplace.org, we had, I would say, like minuscule number of projects where we had to dig deeper and see if it's really okay. That was true until 2 years ago, where like financial regulations forced us to be tighter on that and only accept German charities, so incorporated German charities, to raise funds on betterplace.org. But our vision is to actually work on that and reopen the platform again, so that that not only German projects but social projects from all over the world can raise funding, and that, like working on a social cause, for example, the integration of refugees. So a lot of, when the refugee influx came in 2015, a lot of engagement and social work sprang out of the ground, and there was no organizations behind it. So it was really grassroots movements and initiatives, and giving them also a home to fundraise and actually make their social work possible is one of the main reasons for Better Place to be there. So we're working on actually like opening up again.
So would you say that transparency is one of the most important things to gain trust for the projects you have on your platform?
Yeah, you can say that transparency and a constant communication with your stakeholders and networks. But actually, you can go a step back, and what's true for the consumer markets is also true for the social field. The internet or digitization opens up a lot of new possibilities of interaction, of trust building, of better products and better product delivery. And we see that with fundraising, as you can see it with banking and yeah, consumer products too.
You said never stopping communication, and from the marketing perspective, would you say that it is harder to market a social startup, or it's easier because it's something good that you're marketing?
Well, I think for every company, and for every product you need this core of a brand that is the basis for all the communication you have. And if you, I mean, what would you say if you are like Nestlé? Is there a core of a brand that is easy to communicate? Probably not. Is it a brand which is from the heart very likable or sympathetic? Probably not. So I think yes, that if a brand is doing what they're doing for a good cause, and if they have this social core, yes, it's definitely easier to communicate. I also think that this is not only valid for social projects, but for almost every company. So what we did with Tech Bikers, our social initiative, over the last weeks and months, we conducted the first study about the state of social responsibility in the German startup sector. And we asked founders if they are aware of these topics, if they are already active in these topics. And we also asked potential employees if this is one of several criteria that they look at if they decide for which company they would like to work. And what you definitely can see is that companies that clearly state that they are also doing social activities or social things around social responsibility, that the likelihood that someone would work for them and would apply for a job is growing dramatically. So I think that for every brand, it's good to do things like these, which are not 100% only focused on growing and earning money, but also on doing good. It helps to communicate a brand to consumers, to employees, to almost everyone, yes.
Okay, Christian, you're nodding all the time, so would you say that it made it easier to recruit people?
Yeah, it's a really exciting topic in marketing, I think, because when we came up with the idea, okay, let's plant a tree for every product, the first thing was, okay, everybody will love us, you know, it's amazing, everybody likes trees, but the truth is, it's still really important what you do as what's your product about. It's like I don't know if you know Simon Sinek, but he says people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. So I think this is really true for every brand. You have to have a vision and a social, in the best case, this vision has something to do with social responsibility. But at the same time, the what is still important. And there are brands that forget the what. And of course, I think you have to differentiate between something like Better Place, which is just about, I don't want to say altruism, but just really giving, and something like us, which is a consumer product, where you still have some own motives to buy a chocolate bar that has to be healthy and good tasting. And in this case, sustainability is just the aspect for kind of having a sustainable branding, but it's more like the second step. So first step is like, I need something good for me, something tasty and healthy. And then you kind of attract or like build a brand that people really like in the long term, and they like the vision. But for me, that comes in a consumer product at the second place.
Jakob, you also co-founded Charity, which is another social startup. So in your experience, back to the recruitment argument that Jan made, is that something you experienced as well? That it made it easier to find people, or that the people who came to you were especially looking for something like that?
Yeah, I would totally agree with what Jan's study found out, or what Christian just said. I mean, having run Charity and Lemonade for almost 10 years, and we've been 110 people at the end, I totally made the experience that we got much better talent, which we couldn't have afforded actually, because obviously the competition in the market, Coca-Cola, Bacardi, Beck's, whoever is there in the drinks business pays a lot more than we did, and I think we still got the most amazing crew who obviously joined us, and it's not only about hiring, it's about seeing how long they stay and how much they put in. There's a huge more in terms of intrinsic motivation, I think, and that ends up in better results. So I would totally agree with the outcomes of this study. I think beside getting better talent and having it on board longer, I personally think that we should start translating sustainability rather into ability to sustain. I think it's in a very long perspective, I think business models who take into account their social impact, their ecological impact, they will create better results in the long run. And because the more we start to internalize external factors, the more expensive it becomes for a company to have a shitty footprint, the more it pays out from an economic perspective too. And this has started in terms of HR and in terms of PR and marketing, but I think it starts to end up in different aspects. So in the long run, I think the controlling will be the guys who vote for a stronger CSR strategy, because it pays out. It did for us, and I think, or at least I hope it will for the big players too.
And legal. Legal will vote for social responsibility too, because a lawyer costs a lot less if you're the nice guys. I mean, like, I want to pass it on to the audience, because we are talking about how important and how valuable all this is for us, and that there are great HR effects out of it, which I can confirm. So we have a big tech platform, we have a great developers team, people stay a long time with us, they accept salaries that are compatible but not top-notch, and it's not very hard for us to find new tech people, so I think that might be something that's of interest for you guys. So may I say, I think a lot of people work in startups or run startups here. Can I see who does something on the corporate social responsibility side in their startups? So just to confirm, or can you give me a hand? Like,
I saw one.
Yeah, one. Do we have two, perhaps? Shy people in a startup conference? Okay. Do you want to tell us about it? Okay. Okay.
Thank you. What you do with tech bikers, Jan, it's for, you told me in a talk before that it's for people who work in normal startups so that they can do something good. In your study, did you find out that the wish of people to do something like this is growing?
Well, I can't say if it's growing, because I don't know how it was like 5 or 10 years ago, but we saw that 50% of all the startup founders that we asked in the story said that they have this demand of giving something back and doing something good. So I think the quota here in the room was did not refer to the study. So we saw that about 50% of all startup founders are already doing something in this field, which was more than I honestly expected before that, because when we talk to people, we often hear this argument, well, I need to build a company, and I need to build it fast and profitable, I need to sell it, my investors are giving me pressure and all this stuff, so I don't have time for that, I don't have money for that. And I think this is it's just not true, because everyone can do something. And there's one example that I have in my mind. 8 years ago, I was in South Africa. I was working in a township for 2 months, doing HIV education and sports training for children from the township. And last year, I was back in South Africa. I was on vacation, traveling around the Cape area. And of course, I went back to Gansbaai. This is the place where I was 8 years ago. And I went through this township. I just wanted to see how it developed. And then I saw a guy coming to me, and I had this feeling, I know this guy. And he looked at me in the same way, and so we just stopped and talked to each other. And we found out that 8 years ago, he was in the group that I gave hockey training. So, and then we started talking, and I asked him, hey, what are you doing? He's like 18, or this year he's 19. He said, yes, I'm an entrepreneur. I said, okay, cool, me too. So tell me what you're doing. He said, I have 3 businesses in this township. The first is I have a hairdresser saloon with 2 employees doing hairdressing. Second is I'm running a company which does just guides for tourists, guiding them through the township. And I opened the first internet cafe here in the township with 1 computer. And so I thought, okay, that's pretty cool, because he comes really from poorest conditions in this township, really, really poor. And he just says, no, I'm not giving up. I want to improve my life. And then he said, yeah, and then I have another project beside that. I'm building a project for children who lost their parents. And said, okay, cool that you do it, but why? He said, because I think I have this special talent. As an entrepreneur, I managed to have an impact on my life, to get out of this township and out of these poorest conditions. And I think that if I have this talent, and if I have the possibility to give something back and to do something good for others who just don't have this opportunity, I need to do it. And I think if this guy from a township in South Africa can do it, then every founder in Berlin, Hamburg, Munich, wherever, can do it as well. Because we all have the privilege to live in conditions where we can think of building good companies. We don't have those really deep problems that people in other areas of the world have. Yeah? It's all the problems we have are first world problems. Yeah? And I think we all should be a little bit thankful for that, and should give a little bit back and make sure that if we found companies and build companies, we do it in a sustainable way. And everyone can do something to make sure that his company has also not only a positive impact on their own bank account, but also for the environment.
Can I have a quick question? Like, great story, really inspiring, I think. But my first reaction to the 50% was, why? What about the other 50%? Because what I thought exactly in this moment is, as a founder, you have a kind of a power and a responsibility, and why do 50% only concentrate on a profit-driven business that doesn't care about social responsibility? And I would like to know your opinions. Like, is it education? Is the universities that educate most of the founders, do they concentrate enough on these topics? I haven't been to those, so I don't know, but I really don't think 50% is a good quote, especially because we're living in the generation climate change, so it's everywhere. Why would you not act? Yeah.
Well, I have a personal opinion on that. I think it's because, yes, people don't learn about it at university. At least I did not learn anything about it at university. My experience, I mean, we fucked up our very first startup, and I know how it feels if your investors really give you hard and harder pressure. So I can imagine that there are reasons why you just don't have a focus on that. But I think, and that is also one of the reasons for the study that we conducted and that we will publish over the next weeks. I think that we need a bigger awareness of this social responsibility that every company and every founder has. So it'll become from 50% to 60 to 70 to 80. And I'm sure, and that can clearly be seen in the study, it's not a waste of time. It also, in a second degree, has a positive impact on how people react to your company, how clients get to know your company, how employees get to know your company. So I think it's not a waste of time and resources.
But what do you think can be concrete ways to reach that goal?
So just and that's the advertisement block. Sorry, the others did that too. So, just a quick example from Better Place. So we run this online donation platform, and we collaborate a lot with companies as well who want to make visible that they give back, that they donate. For example, towards Christmas time, they donate 5,000 euros to a social cause, and they want their customers to see that. And so they use our products to make it more interactive and involve their customers or their team members, and that works really well. And for example, like one of the products we have is donation vouchers that you can send out with like the reduction coupon codes or something that you put in your if you have a consumer product in your e-commerce parcel, for example, and it's like €5 on one of the vouchers and you give it as a present to your customers so that they can go online and donate that to the cause of their choosing. These vouchers have an immensely positive result in customer retention. So the people actually use them differently or very different from the voucher codes that you would not normally give them to like 10% reduction on your next buy or something like that. And it's a lot cheaper than that. So you have like a positive investment. You do something for society and for social causes. Plus, it helps you keep your customers close. It's also just opening up the door and thinking about these topics and combining them with your company's goals. And there are good matches to do that.
Yeah, I just wanted to come back to that question that Christian raised. Why is it only 50%? And I think there's like to most questions, there's probably not that one answer, but I think the problem is in the system itself. It's a systematic problem. One thing is fundraising, obviously. I can give you a huge list of pros of running a social business, but I can give you a few cons, and I'll tell you fundraising is a lot tougher because there isn't so much impact investing out there. It's a growing scene, and we will manage. I'm happy about that, but I can tell you it's a lot tougher if you want to establish a business model that is rather stakeholder-driven than shareholder-driven. So the whole financing, fundraising part makes it tougher, and I think it's a question of that we probably need more or different role models as well. The huge stars of the business or entrepreneurship scene, they usually they're not home in social businesses, so they rather stand for growth and like the classic conventional issues. And I think it's a question of framing as well. It's always social entrepreneurship versus normal business, whatever that means. And I think we draw the line at the wrong spot. I think it should rather be unsocial versus normal, because actually social should be the new normal. I mean, taking into account what your business does, what it does to stakeholders, all kind of stakeholders, in regards to your value chain, in regards to your employees, that's quite an obvious thing, and that has been there much longer than the term social entrepreneurship. So if you take the verb ehrbarer Kaufmann in Hamburg, that's the way you should do business. You shouldn't, it's a moral imperative. You shouldn't do stuff to people that you don't want to be done to yourself. And I think it's a bit of a change of mind there to say, well, it's not social versus normal. It's rather, let's speak about the unsocial ones and make the social ones the new normal. Yeah.
Okay, that's a nice wrap up. Thank you very much.